All right, let's go. We're going to let it fly. I love that. Here we are back on the Gill Athletics Connections podcast. So humble to be your host, Mike Cunningham, here at the Gill Connections podcast. And, I feel like this one's going to be jam packed. So I'm going to go super, super minimal with my intro. We're going to hop right into it. Help me welcome from the University of Oregon, the assistant coach there, the wise and wonderful Mr. Curtis Taylor. Curtis, how are you, sir?
Doing fantastic. Better now that I'm here with you.
No, brother, you humble me, my friend. How's everything going there in Oregon?
We got a few wildfires and it's a little smoky and thunderstorms today, and it's 96. So usually you guys come up here and get the thunderstorms when it's 47, but today we got
Yeah.
a trifecta: smoke, heat, and rain.
Dude, I thought Oregon was heaven on earth. This doesn't sound that good.
It is heaven on earth. It's just, you got all those things in heaven as well.
That's right. That's a good point. That's a good point. Well, man, I am super pumped. Thank you so much for joining us here. We're going to dive into your background, which, I know from a little bit of experience of just it's so varied. And I love the different experiences you've had. And of course, everybody's going to want to know how's it like at Oregon and all that kind of stuff. Because, of course, Oregon's a great big part of our track and field lore and life and culture. So, of course, we'll dive into that. But before we get to Oregon, let's get in our Wayback Machine. And Curtis, assuming, and we know what assuming does, right? That you were a track athlete. Where does track start for you?
Wow, great question. So I used to play basketball when I went to high school, like every other kid in Oakland. Oakland's a big basketball hotbed, and that's where I'm from. I used to play basketball, and at that time, they didn't have any transfer rules. So our head coach left. I went to Bishop O'Dowd High School. Our head coach left, and we got a new head coach. And without the transfer rules, he brought his entire team over from the high school where he was previously coaching at. And so he was like, hey, you could play junior varsity if you want to keep playing. Now, I was going into the 11th grade. I'm like, I'm not going to be in the 11th grade going down from varsity to junior varsity. I'm not going to do it. And then I was like, what do I do now? And I thought to myself, I've always been relatively fast. Maybe I'll try track. So me and my buddies who also got cut, we all we all are quit. We also all decided to run track, and that's where I started doing it. And then my dad just passed away a couple of months ago, and he used to take us to every track meet, West Coast relays, the USA, USSR meets,
Oh,
all that
wow.
stuff. Because in the Bay Area, you had all that with Stanford, Cal, Modesto, for West Coast and Fresno relays and this, that, and the other. And
Right.
so we're at track meets all the time. And so I was familiar with track, loved it. This is when you put 50,000 people in the stands for a track meet. So that's how I got started in track. Tried to go to Cal initially. Coach Hunt, who's been a great guy
Yeah.
for me, didn't acknowledge me, didn't return any of my texts, or well, it wasn't text back then, any of my
Yeah,
phone
right.
calls or any of that kind of stuff. So I ended up going to UC Davis with the great John Rochester.
Yeah.
He was my coach. It was a real influential person, USA Track and Field, and the late Dr. Mel Ramey, who was a jumps coach. I was a jumper. I was a long jumper, triple jumper. Used to run the hurdles, the 100, and relays, and it just kind of grew from there.
So go step back to high school. That's so interesting that you had a track background, but didn't do track until the whole basketball fiasco happened.
Right.
What, as you were looking at going to college, you're looking at Cal and UC Davis and things like that. What were you at that time as a, 17, 18-year-old kid? At that time, what were you thinking of? I'm going to major in this. I'm going to become a doctor, a lawyer, a business owner. What were you thinking about becoming as an adult?
I thought I was gonna play in the NBA.
Oh no. Even after, wait a minute, even after the whole junior
Man,
year fiasco.
I played basketball every day of my life until I got to be about 23. Now,
Oh,
you got to remember, I grew up with, they were a little younger than me, but Brian Shaw and Tony Jackson, those
oh,
guys were fantastic. Gary Payton and Jason Kidd, I remember refereeing their games and just people like that.
right.
And so it was the culture in Oakland was basketball. You played basketball or baseball. Some people played football. Track wasn't part of the culture back
Right.
then.
Yeah.
So,
But you go to UC Davis, I mean, a fantastic school. What did you end up majoring in?
oh, kines.
Yeah. Okay.
So I was a kines major. I also got my master's degree in kinesiology as well. Kinesiology with an emphasis on sensory motor skill acquisition, and biomechanics. So.
Why that if you were going to be an NBA player? That doesn't sound like something
Oh
you'd be.
no, by that point, this I went back to get my master's 10 years later.
Oh, wow. Okay. All right.
So, I had been out and I decided I caught the coaching bug and I decided, hey, might as well go learn about it. I wrote my thesis, my graduate paper. It wasn't a thesis at that time on speed development. And
Oh,
it's out there somewhere. I gave it to somebody because I didn't really care about it and think about it at the time, and somebody has it or has seen parts of it.
I want
I wish
to.
I had it back now.
Yeah, I was gonna say I want to double click on that for a second, but let me catch up to that. So, when is it during Davis you caught the coaching bug, or after you graduated?
Nah, here's what happened. So I got out of college and I came back home to live with my parents. I didn't know what I was gonna do in particular. I did some exercise physiology before when I was a physical therapy aide
Hmm.
before I did the whole physical therapy thing. But my brother was in a parochial school, St. Pascal's, and at these Catholic schools like that, your parents have to pay extra money for you to do things on top of regular tuition.
Right.
So I was living there, and my mother was like, "Hey, you can't be living here for free. Instead of us paying money to the school to have your brother go there, you need to go help out with the track team."
Oh, wow.
And so she kind of forced me to go out there, and I had some great kids there. I don't know what happened, and that's when I caught the bug. So I was like working with these kids, and then three of them graduated and went on to high school, and the high school coach was like, "Hey, can you come with them,
Hmm.
and help out here?" And then we had my first California state champion was that year, Michelle DeCoux, and she was a hurdler, and I don't know how I figured it out. It was just me and my friends. I had never hurdled in my life and still haven't heard of it to this day. So she did great and won the 100 hurdles and the 300 hurdles in high school. And then I was smitten.
That was it.
The guards were off. I was doing whatever I could do to be a track coach.
So you said you didn't know how you figured it out. Typically we coach at least initially when we get into coaching how we were coached because that's all we know. Now you had some amazing influences. Those two individuals you spoke at Davis, I'd like to hear more about them because I've heard their names in a lot of places and in a lot of ways. What kind of influence did they have on you to where you eventually became a track coach?
Well, they taught me to use the science of it.
Mm.
Dr. Mel Ramey was a civil engineer. He was one of the guys who did a lot of the research on force plates and whatnot for jumpers
Oh yeah.
with USA Track and Field, or back when it was the Athletics Congress and all those kinds of things. And so he coached from a science perspective.
Mm.
So it made me want to learn more about that. And then Coach Rochester had gone to Cal State Hayward too. And he was, knew all the guys that actually I ended up working with who were the Cal State Hayward was a great Division II power track and field powerhouse with great jumpers. Jim Santos was a great coach down there. And
Yeah.
Dr. Donald Chu, who was along with Coach Rad and some other people, was one of the pioneers of plyometrics. Well, not pioneers, but bringing it over from the
Right.
Eastern Bloc type thing. And so all those guys encouraged me to not coach from the way I was coached, but coach from an angle of science. And then in my master's program, it was the same type of thing. But anyway, back then, I just used my science, my background. I learned a lot doing before I took all my licensing and stuff to be a physical therapist. I learned a lot from that job too, how the body works together and different kinds of things. I learned a lot of it in my undergrad, but it was actually put into function. It's one thing of learning things in a book,
Right.
or learning things from writing papers and stuff like that. It's another thing with the application. It's two different things.
How did you, I'm going to say, accept the science-based background, assuming your high school experience, which was I'm going to say only 2 years, your junior and senior year. How did you like? Sometimes that can be more methodical and maybe boring might be a word for it as an athlete, and you just want to rah rah rah. Let me go run hard. Let me go run so hard till I throw up and all that kind of stuff. How did you like see like, oh wait, this actually makes sense on what we're doing?
Because I wasn't getting any better. I
Mm,
was like, there's got to be a better way to do it. And my high school coach, um, great guy, but he used to have us run like I was a sprinter and jumper, and we used to run like repeat 600s for
oh,
every practice.
yeah, yeah,
I didn't know better. We did them because he told us to do it.
right.
And it just never worked out for me. So I was like, there's got to be a better way to do this.
Yeah. So very similar. My first 3 years of high school track, we literally, and I love my high school coaches. I mean, I love them to death. But they didn't know any better, and so we did what they thought was right. So the first 3 years, we literally ran our events every day, and went home. So I ran the 400, the 800, the mile, the 2 mile, and the 4x8 every single day. My senior year, much more similar to yours, we got a new coaching staff. So for football, which means in small town Alabama, we got a whole new coaching staff for every sport, and we did 400-meter repeats almost every day. I can't remember another workout we did. It was literally every single day. And so I got better because the stimulus, I got the stimulus to the body, but I didn't get good or as good as
Yeah,
I could have.
you get strong, but you don't get better.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you're stronger. I can run slow longer.
Yeah. Yeah. And
That's
certainly,
what it was.
and
And my high school head coach was also the football coach.
mhm.
So that tells you something right there.
Yeah,
Not
same.
knocking football coaches who are track coaches, but he was a football coach who did track because he had to.
Yeah, same. Ours was the quarterback coach, exactly. And I don't know how I stuck with track because I certainly didn't fall in love with track doing 400-meter repeats every single day. That's for sure. It's like
Well,
a
I
strong
think
soul
people
survive.
fall in love. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I was gonna say maybe only the strong soul survive, even though it was, slogging through 400s. I still enjoyed track and field some form or fashion.
Well, I think it's a one of the things that I like about track and field is that it's a self-determining sport. Like
Hmm.
I hear this all the time, even now when we get kids who do football and track, is that everybody who sits on the bench in a basketball game or a football game or a baseball game is like, hey, I can beat those guys if I just got an opportunity, and that's their opinion. But in track, you get an opportunity. So
Right.
there's always a chance to get better.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the things that lures people to track. It's amazing to me. Like we have kids, even here at Oregon, who are like, they know they're never gonna win. Like they're never gonna win a race. And they train just as hard and do
Yeah.
just as much work, and their commitment is the same as the guy that's, conference champion or NCAA champion or something like that. And that's
Yeah.
always what the quote unquote the romantic side of
Right.
track and field is, that there's always the hope of tomorrow it'll be better. Next meet I'll PR. Next meet I'll do this. And so I think that's the bait.
Hmm.
That's what gets them hooked,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
then brings it back.
And this is generalizing because this isn't every track athlete, but there's other sports. You mentioned the footballs and basketball where I can have an excuse. Like, oh, you know why I'm not as good a quarterback? Well, my
Right,
offensive line's not as good, or my receivers don't catch, or the
right.
point guard didn't pass me the ball. That's why I don't score as much. But in track, boy, it's hard to have excuses when pretty much everybody gets a watch on them and a tape measure on them, and we know exactly how good or maybe average you might be. So it takes that special person knowing, like, hey, there's going to be no one to make excuses to, but myself, because I'm the one who's going to be running or jumping or throwing out there.
Big facts.
Yeah.
Big facts.
So you start coaching the middle school and the high school. You get a state champion. You start learning the hurdles. And now I love your words there. The bug is bit. You're a coach. Okay, how do I continue to pursue? This is what I want to be now as an adult.
Well, it was crazy. I started getting all my jobs like so then I transferred to a new company I was working with. I went and took my exams and my board stuff and got licensed as a therapist. So, but I would only take jobs at companies who would hire me where I could be off at 3 o'clock because I had to be back home for track practice at 3:30. So, I
You are
mean, I
bit.
knew then, I was like, nah, I can't do this. I can't work that shift. I can't be here on Saturdays. I just can't
Right.
do it. And so, it just kind of developed from then. But I always, because track, obviously, any quality track coach, let's see, any track coach pretty much, but any quality track coach for sure from the in the late 80s to the 2000 early 2000s did probably made 25 cents an hour coaching.
Hmm.
Like you didn't make any money. And a lot of times, if you made money, you were better off. You lost a lot of money. You're paying for kids to travel and buying kids shoes and all that kind of stuff. So you have to have a real job. And, and that's what it became. It was just different things. I did all kind of businesses and different kind of stuff. I did construction. I did a lot, a lot of different jobs.
Wow.
And it was just to supplement my track stuff.
Was it all like, was your intent back then to be a full-time coach, whether that was to find a high school that would hire you as a therapist or athletic trainer or something like that and coach, or to eventually get into college?
Well, here was the funny thing. So we used to um we used to use Merritt College. I don't know if yeah,
Mhm.
you know Merritt
Of
College.
course.
We used to
Of
use
course.
Merritt College before you guys put in the nice surface and
Right.
equipment and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
It was an old rubberized track that had been people talk about training on a bad track. This track, someone had poured gasoline on part of it and set it on fire. So
No.
from where the fire jumped, it had big patches in the track. But it was good for us because then I could go down there and spray paint all of the marks that I needed and nobody cared. But the the head coach at that time was Maurice Compton, and the Oakland public school system, OUSD, and the Peralta Community College system has great benefits and they paid well. And so my goal was to get a job where I was the head coach and got a tenured teaching position at one of these junior colleges. That was my goal.
Yeah.
And I was like, I can get this job, I can coach, I can run my own program.
Hmm.
And once I get my tenure, I can do whatever I want and they're not going to be able to fire me.
Right.
So that was my goal. After a while, I had businesses and stuff like that. Like I was saying, I did consulting and I did fairly well with that, but I just wanted to be a coach.
Hmm.
Um, and, things, it's funny how in life where you mentally put your energy and then things start arriving that you didn't expect. And that's what
Hmm.
happened to me. Like everything started falling into place. It was crazy. And like I needed something, and somehow out of somewhere, I have to use, not to get religious or
Hmm.
political, but
Hmm.
I have to say that God or whoever's in charge of it, like pretty much said, I hear what you're looking for. Here you
Hmm.
go. And it was crazy, man. It was like divine intervention 100% of the way.
What's an example of that? You're thinking of a certain specific story. Be specific for me.
So, Tony Wells is one of my mentors. We'll probably talk about that later.
I hope so.
And they started that uh what was it called then? Not USA Track and Field. Whatever came after before USA Track and Field and after the Athletics Congress, whatever it was, then they started having this elite women's
Mm.
elite junior women's summer program,
Right.
a training camp. in Colorado Springs. So I had a really good athlete, another one of those California state champion kids, and she got invited. You had to run, they had a standard of marks, and if you ran that, they would pay for you to come out to Colorado Springs and do some research with them in the summertime for a week. They had the hurdles camp for a week and the sprints
Hmm.
camp for a
Hmm.
week. And so I met Tony out there, and that's a whole nother, that's a 3 hour segment on its own. That was a beast.
Yes.
Tony told me, after I had been there, because I started having really good kids every year. And so I went there every year until I became a clinician. And then I became a clinician there because I had been there for so long. And every summer, and one of those summers, I can't remember which one, maybe 93 or 94, Tony was like, hey man, you got to stop doing these high school kids. You need to raise your own. And I was like, what do you mean? He said, when you're in high school, and I was having a problem with this. When you're in high school, you have hundreds of kids on the team, but a lot of them just want to be there for, to put on their resume, I did track
Right.
and, stuff like that. And they're not really serious. And it kind of takes away from the serious kids, which is fine. Um, but Tony was like, you'll have more success as a coach. For some reason he took me under his wing for everything. And I was blessed with that. And so he said, you got to start raising your own. So what happened was, and this is how the East Oakland, the EOYDC track club, which was one of for 10, 15 years, we did a great job, man. Everything fell into place with that. And my high school, a girl that I went to junior high, high school, and college with was the director of the East Oakland Youth Development Center. And all they really had in there was a gym. Now, if you ever go look at any documentary on Oakland, every great player out of Oakland came to that gym to play.
Oh,
And
wow.
Raiders were down, it's over by the Coliseum. So the Hoopers would come by, the Warriors, the Raiders, everybody would come to the center and it was a big to do. So all the kids in the neighborhood. So we started a program there, and I asked Regina. I said, "Can you run Regina?" Who's the Regina Jackson, who
Hmm.
was so influential in Oakland. They named the street after her. The street that the youth center is on is named
Wow.
after her, Regina Jackson Way.
Wow.
And Regina said, yeah, you can use it, but I don't have any money. We don't have a track. We don't have any access. So in my mind, I was like, okay, we'll just use the gym on Mondays and Fridays to do our weight workouts and not our weight workouts, but our power stuff run. But I was like, when I started, I was like, so first of all, Regina was the first blessing. Me and Tony was the first blessing. Regina was the second blessing. She was like, you can do what you can.
Right.
And then that's like, we need some weights in here. We got to figure out how to put a weight room in here and this kind of thing. I asked Regina, and Regina said, we still don't have any money. We don't have money for that. Nothing's changed.
Yeah, that's changed.
So I got a phone call from somebody just like, hey, uh, some gym, random gym closing down and they're giving away all their equipment. All you got to do
No
is
way.
get a trailer and come and pick it up. So I got weight benches and bars and a lot of tonnage and stuff. And it just
Wow.
happened. Like, how are we going to get to the meets? And then I went pitched a proposal to Southwest, and so did she. And because we were in an economically depressed area, they gave us vouchers for travel and they sponsored us. And
Dude.
with the PSAT, the SAT program, what is the name of that company? I hate because they came in and did SAT tutoring for free twice a week. So the
Hmm.
kids had to go. It was mandatory that they do SAT tutoring. And it was just one thing like that after another. I met
Yeah.
from Fleet Feet. I don't know if you remember that company.
Of course.
They used to give us apparel and help us out to, financially to go to the meets. And then the kids started getting good. So everywhere we went, like Simplot or National Scholastic Championships or whatever, they would pay for our plane flights, also on top of everything else, whatever we couldn't get from our vouchers. And they would give us hotel rooms and things. It's just
Wow.
everything just started working. I mean, it was crazy. And I was just thinking this was just a seed in my mind that Tony had planted, and then somehow it all came to fruition. So
That's so cool. I
yeah.
uh I love Tony. I never met Tony, and so I want to talk more about him. I was blessed. We had Carol Smith Gilbert on the show maybe a year ago, and one of the topics I really wanted to talk with her was her mentor, Tony Wells. So definitely want to make sure let's talk about Tony here a little bit. And the question I have leading up to Tony is, what are you doing at this point? At this point, up to when you meet Tony, because I know Tony is going to be maybe the real answer here. What are you doing coaching education wise? Is it all centered around all the therapy stuff that you're learning? Or are you doing any, level one would have maybe started back then, any clinics?
You know what's crazy is I've been a, a level three instructor. I've been a level three clinician where I've spoken and done all of these things. I have never been to level one nor level two. I've done level three. I've done level two as a presenter. I've never done any of that.
Ah, okay. Were you doing any
Because
clinics or anything like that?
um, the first clinic I ever went to was in 93. I did Lawrence Seagrave did a clinic.
Yeah. Okay.
Um, and Las Vegas. And so I learned a little bit from that, but I never really went to any conventions. I was
Yeah.
just kind of winging it. And it was crazy because the kids were still winning,
Yeah.
everybody was doing good and running fast. But the thing that really opened my mind is that when we went up to Colorado Springs, I remember the first day I met Tony, I was lost. And then I saw some guy came up in the USA Jack, and I'm like, hey, I'm trying to find this building. He says, oh, you must be here for the thing. Just follow me. And I said, yeah, I'm up here. I'm trying to figure out what I'm doing wrong. He said, what you should be doing is trying to figure out what you're doing right, and then figure out, work it backwards from there. And I thought,
Wow.
okay.
That's
So
different.
I had all kind of questions because I read stuff like I wasn't doing any clinics, but I would read stuff and try to find articles and stuff
Right.
like that. And I asked him a question about some fall training because everybody kept telling me like the kids need to do cross country and run 600s on the grass and all this stuff. So that was my first question I remember asking. And this is a sprint camp. And so I
Mhm.
was like, hey, what do you think is better, doing cross country or doing 600s or something like that on the grass in the fall? He was like, why do either? And I'm like, what do you mean? He said, if you can tell me why I should do this, I'll do it. But if you can't tell me why, then you need to figure out what the whys are of everything.
Yeah.
Are we doing it? They had this huge library out there. Tony Vini was one of the clinicians too, and what's my guy's name? He passed away recently.
You saw V
Anyway,
Hill,
huh?
Joe V Hill.
No, no, no,
No?
no. He was God dang, he was a great coach too. He was worked at Florida. His name will come back to me. He's a little older than all of us.
Okay.
Um, now I forgot where I was going with this.
The library.
Oh yeah, and they had this big library where they had and I found it, and they had all of these articles from the Sport Athletica, the Russian plays, some East German stuff, and all of these different books, Australian track and field. They used to have all of these articles. Like the science was a big thing. It's not a big thing now. That's political, and I don't want to get into that too much unless you want to dive into it, but now people just watch people do drills and stuff on the internet. And one of the things, as a side note, one of the things that I find interesting is that I'll do a clinic and I'll talk about some theories and what positions you are in as a coach, not positions of athlete, and how you figure your way out of them. And my biggest thing is to be task specific and whatever you're doing. It's funny because me and Carol just went over this. We had a conversation about this last night,
Hmm.
and nobody writes down anything. And then I'm like, for instance, one day, and I do this sometimes just to see what the response is. And I said the other day we were doing 5 times 300, and the pencils start going active.
Yeah.
Oh, here's the workout. This is what
Yeah.
we want. And so we got so much of that stuff online that there's no people don't read articles anymore.
Yeah.
I get, older coaches send me articles and science and research stuff all the
Yeah.
time.
I,
But anyway,
I
oh,
hold
go
on,
ahead.
hold on. Because this that actually just came up the other day on Twitter and Facebook. Sammy Dabbs had a very similar comment to what you just said there. He's like, I'm kind of paraphrasing here, Sammy, if you're listening to this. I'm kind of tired of doing clinics and sessions and stuff because no one wants to know. I'm going to call it the base of it, the why, if you will. They want the workouts, and I what I said to him is the same I would say to you, Curtis. Is I get that, and you're right. Some people, not all, some only want the workouts. They haven't understood how important the why is, but if people like you and Sammy and others give up teaching, that's what you're really doing when you're presenting, you're teaching. If you give up teaching younger coaches and newer coaches the right ways to think about and then to prescribe workouts, well, then it will just continue to go down the wrong path. And it'll only be articles of what the workouts are, what we did with this athlete and this athlete, and that's not going to get us anywhere in aggregate for our field. So my encouragement is to continue. I understand some coaches only want workouts, but other coaches maybe don't know they need to know the why, and they hear someone like you or Sammy, et cetera, and they start down there. That's what happened to me. I had no clue about how to coach, and then I went to a clinic in Marshall Goss, who love him to death, former Marshall, and he did a hurdle clinic, and I was like, and I was I think two, at least 1 year into coaching, maybe 2 years, and I was like, oh, wait a minute, like you can actually coach this event. It's not just throw the hurdles up and have them do 5x5 or whatnot. Like there's actual coaching,
Right.
and that set me on my journey, which was a pretty decent little career that I had. But so don't. My encouragement to you is to continue teaching the right things the right way, and that will be an aggregate positive for our profession. And don't give up.
No, no, no. I agree with you 100%. I'm not giving up. I'm making the point to that when we went to this camp, like I would leave camp literally with a stack of papers this big,
Mm-hmm.
just different articles and random stuff. And then they got mad at us because we were using up too much of their paper because first it was just me and a couple of the other coaches, and then everybody started going in there. So I have, well, not anymore. I still have stacks and stacks of articles, but people, my friends come over, even up here in Oregon in my old office, I still have a whole storage of articles
Oh
and
wow,
books and stuff. And people come in here, like my mentees and people like that come in
yeah,
here and steal them, and they don't ever. I'll bring it back to you, coach. I was like, don't even tell me that because you're not gonna
it's
bring it
gone.
back.
See ya.
It's like when you loan somebody money, talk about I'll pay you back
Yeah,
as
yeah.
soon as I can. I'm like, yeah, I'm not
Would
gonna get this
would
back.
it only lend money you can lose or something like
Right, that you're
that?
prepared to
That you're
lose.
ready to
Only
lose.
only you allow that much. So
So, Curtis, one
um,
of the after almost 6 years, going on 6 years here, and 300 plus interviews from from Mouse and Carol to Judd Logan's and everything in between. One of the I must say responsibilities I sometimes feel is, this evergreen content that we're creating. Like, here going through your story, 20 years from now, someone is going to be able to hear your story, at least how it was up to 2025, and feel inspired or motivated or have a better understanding of you. They thought they knew who Coach Taylor was, and they're going to have a better understanding. So one of the things that it's just inevitable. I don't know why I feel bad because there's nothing I can do. There's some coaches, V Hill, Tony Wells, which is where I'm going with this, that, I'm kind of sad that I didn't start this podcast 10 years ago and get people like that to show future coaches, young coaches, new coaches, some of these great, amazing men and women that we've had in our profession. So it was real special when I got to talk with Carol about Tony. I want to know more. I kind of want to double click in there to the influence of Tony. It's amazing that your first almost sentence from Tony was like this. I mean, just kind of like a clear the air, a message from God, if you will. It's like, hey, man, why are you looking at what you're not supposed to be doing? Why don't you look at what you are doing and move from there? And it's like, holy crap, that's just a whole different way of thinking about it. Can you tell us more about, did you know who Tony Wells was before you went there? And then give us some more, the influence that he had on you.
to be honest, I had no idea who Tony Wells
Sure.
was.
Yeah.
I was I had just started really coaching seriously, and I can't even remember my first year being there. Tony Vini swears it was 80 something, and I'm thinking it was more like the early 90s. But
Right.
I just we got an invitation. She wanted to go, I wanted to learn. So I just went. So I didn't know who he was. And like I said, when I saw him, I was just like, hey, this guy got a USA jacket. He looks like he knows where he's going. I'm gonna follow him. And for whatever reasons, I asked all the right questions and
Yeah.
he took an interest in me. And like we talked on a regular basis. And I really, everything he said to me, coming from a science background, everything he said resonated with me.
Hmm.
I didn't know if it was right or wrong, but it sounded right because that's what I came from. Like,
Yeah.
remember I told you my high school coach Rochester was all right, and I wasn't the greatest and most compliant college athlete. And that's one of the things I try not to get mad at the kids about because I'm like, hey, there's the basic cat and mouse game here. Like, we do bad. You're supposed to chastise us for doing bad. We're supposed to try to get away with stuff, and you're supposed to try to catch us. That's pretty much
Yeah.
how this works. And so my conversations with them are always like, hey, we need to get on the same page. And so learning about, and that's the kind of guy I was in college. I was trying to get away with stuff. So learning about, hey, there's actually some method to the madness, and from the science people that I got, like I said, Coach V and Coach Ramey started me on the right path with all of this kind of stuff. Remember, this is before I had even gotten into graduate school, so it
Right.
was it
Oh,
was
right. Yeah.
yeah, so I hadn't even started with that. And so I just wanted to learn. And he was there to help me, and I just intuitively, that's why I'm saying all of this stuff, I've been blessed. All of this stuff just kind of just started crystallizing. Everything just started coming together, and Tony was a big part of that. Tony encouraged me to like for the whys of track and field. I think I did a clinic on that.
Hmm.
Matter of fact, I'm sure that you need to figure out what you're looking for, even if you're in your coaching, not even in the philosophy, like in your day to day. Like, why are you doing this workout? What do you
Right.
expect to get out of it, and how does it affect people? And that's to me was always a big thing, and that's like to me it's a pillar to any success that I've ever been able to have is based on trying to figure out why we do this and what is the expected outcome of it.
Yeah, I love that, and I love talking about the Veenies and Tony Wells and stuff because I think there's just so many coaches out there right now. I think I know there are so many coaches out there that were affected by like a Tony Wells that don't even know it. They think oh, I learned a lot from Curtis or I learned a lot from Carol, and they did from both of you two in this example. But where did you guys learn that stuff from? And that's from guys like Tony Wells who poured into you, thank goodness, so that you can pour into others, and eventually those mentees will pour into others. It's kind of like the shoulders that we stand on. It just continues to grow. So I love anytime a guy like Tony Wells is in the picture to make sure we're giving him the flowers that he was due and is due with his influence, positive influence in our coaching profession. So just love him and love what he did and love who he poured into. So I love that fact for you.
Yeah, he's fantastic. He would be smiling right now because what's happened in track and field now is that people are learning to do all of the things that he said. Like he used to do stuff like he would buy, not buy, and I remember we all did this one time, which was ridiculous. But he would get these articles, and then he'd buy a translation book and go through like he'd get an article from the Italian coaches or
Oh, wow.
German coaches, and he would get a book. He was not a borderline genius. He was a genius when it came to a lot of things. He did all kind of stuff, man. He coached football.
Right.
He beat my ass in chess. He was a great
Oh,
chess player. He just did everything. But he would get these articles and he would get a book for whatever. It's not like you can do it now and go to, Chat GPT
yeah.
or Google Translate or anything like that. He'd just go word for word. He would spend his evening just
Wow.
ciphering these kinds of things, man, and he would let you know. But he was so far ahead of his time. Like, and this is why I say would be proud now. Like, we look at when I first started with him, and I remember my first really, well, there was a girl, Michelle, I was telling you about, and then there was Bisa Grant, who turned into a little bit of international hurdler, but she was decent. And when we were coaching Bisa, she was a hurdler, and I used to go to Tony for advice. And Tony would have all of this stuff figured out. He'd be like, here's what I do with my hurdler. Stuff he wouldn't share with anybody. And he just showed me, and we go through there, and it was so task specific. You want to run this fast, at over a certain amount of time. This how many sticks you should put down, this how far you should put them apart. And then he would explain to me the theories behind it, which
Wow.
made total sense. And so we would go back and forth with these kinds of things. And now I see everybody's using all of these things. The double knee down start, like we used
Oh
to,
yeah.
our little high school team used to, this back in the early 90s, we used to do dynamic warm up. Nobody was doing that. Everybody would go run a mile, run 4 laps, and then sit down and do some static stretching. We used to be doing dynamic warm up, and other kids would be laughing and stuff like that. And coach would say, this, even when I came here and I first started at Oregon, nobody was doing all this stuff. And I was friends with a lot of the big coaches because they had come to the center or to the junior college to recruit.
Right.
So I had known those guys for years, and they're like, it's not going to work here. You're not going to do any of that kind of stuff. And immediately when we started making a little bit of noise, because Oregon, is not known for sprinting, hasn't been. We had,
Right.
Harry Jerome and Otis Davis back in the 50s and
Mhm.
60s. And then after that, we had basically nobody for many years until English
Yeah.
Robert came and did a great job with a lot of
Yeah.
things.
Yep.
Um, and Vin allowed him to do what he wanted to do. And then when
Hmm.
he got the head coach, he brought me over there. But that's a whole nother story we'll get
Yep. Yep.
into
We'll
later,
get there.
maybe, or maybe not.
Hmm.
But now I sit and I watch the warm-ups. Everybody's doing dynamic warm-ups. Everybody. We used to get our little kids, used to have their little tape measures. If they didn't have tape measures, they'd have a string with a marker marked
Yep.
on the white string, and they'd pull that out and measure. And people used to know, 2 feet, 3 feet, or 2.5 feet, or whatever.
Yep.
Now everybody's doing tape measure. Everybody's doing like all of these things that Tony was basically a pioneer of,
Yeah. Yeah.
like everybody's doing them now. And so it's a testament to how positive and how knowledgeable and how talented he was in the way that he approached
Yeah.
things in a positive manner, that everyone has basically adopted this.
Yep.
And I was like, I didn't think he was gonna have this kind of input on at the time I was just like, this is my guy, and nobody knows except me and Carol. And me and Carol used to meet up and talk about things and just do stuff track. Carol wanted to be, and she'll tell you herself at one point, Carol always, and she probably still feels this way, but she's like, I want to be the greatest track coach that ever lived. And she's on her way to doing it. She
Yeah.
great things, man.
Yeah, yeah. She told us a great story. She was actually going to go to Hollywood. She was going to be, I believe, an editor. And she goes, Tony goes, no, you're going to be a track coach. And she's like, all right, yes, sir. I was like, well, thank goodness he said that to you.
Yeah, man.
I
Tony
love it.
Tony was influential, man. I used to talk to him about stuff. And then when I started getting better kids, it became tougher.
Uh, why is that?
Well, because it's like I think you get to a point where you're mentoring somebody where you're happy for them, but it's kind of like now this person is kind of a rival. And it's
Mm,
not in a bad way. It's
yeah,
just normal human competition. Like
yeah,
I'm not trying to be better than you. I love you. You're my guy. And he was kind of like, okay, now I got to step my game up a little bit. And
yeah,
so, it was not bad. I'm not saying
yeah,
anything negative about him at all. It just, the dynamics of our relationship changed where it was kind of like
yeah,
we were here instead of being like so far off the scale.
yeah.
And so,
Yeah, that,
and
that makes sense. That makes sense, especially in our sport, which is very, like you said, not only the coaches are typically very competitive people, but the whole aspect of the sport is competitive. Did my kid beat your kid, and what happens in the next round? So yeah, that makes some sense.
right. And this is all your friends and stuff. And I try to be
Yeah,
happy with, I've rationalized it because not about Tony, but just about these kind of things. Everybody wants to be the best and everybody wants to prove their theories. Because at the end of the day, for me, track is like a big science project.
Hmm.
So it's like I take this kid, I look at all the parameters, I got to figure out how to make them better. And this is a big project. So,
Right.
there's a lot of things that influence, wind and weather, different kinds of weather, whether it's
Hmm.
warm or rainy or cold, and,
Right.
all these different kinds of things. So I don't always get the results that I want, but I always have a goal to get to. And so as coaches, I realized that I got to my goal, and even though your person was better than me, that
Hmm.
doesn't mean that I didn't achieve what I needed to achieve. I tell the kids all the time, I'm like, there's 8 to 9 lanes in any given race if you're a sprinter. By definition, one person is going to win and there's going to be 7 or 8 losers. If you did the best that you could do and you achieve the goals that we have set and you come in sixth or seventh place, you're a winner. Like
Hmm.
this is what our goal was. And I make goal setting is one of the big things for me that the kids need to set goals and figure out how to achieve them. And it's my job as a coach to have them realize what's a reasonable goal. Like, I had a kid this year who had run 11:20 and their goal was to run 10:80. And I was like, this is not going to happen. Like, this is nothing against you, but we have to process this out and see how we can make it happen first. Now, I'm not saying it's never going to happen,
Right.
but for you to jump down 4/10 of a second
Hmm.
in one year is a lot,
Yeah.
you know. And these kinds of things are challenging. Kids run, fast in high school. If you're 11:20, that's super fast for a high school runner. For a college runner, it's not easy to run 11:20 because 11:20 in college means you're going to be behind a lot of the time. You're going to be
Right.
behind some people. You'll win some races, but you run 11:50 in high school, you're going to win practically every race you ever run,
Hmm.
maybe at state meet or Nike Outdoors
Right.
or New Balance or something like that, you'll be tested. But other than that,
Hmm.
and those are basically all-star meets. I don't think the kids feel
Right.
one way or another whether they win or lose
Hmm.
because it's just like, we've been invited out here, they flew us out here, they're putting us up, they're having all of these things for us.
Right.
So I don't think the kids really care.
Right.
Um,
And that's where the guidance of a coach is needed, right? So like that 11:20 to 10:80 example you gave, it's like, you probably had maybe had a conversation or could have had the conversation of like, if you ran 12:20, we might talk about 11:80, but the time is different once you get to some marks. The percentage is a lot smaller.
right,
That just
right.
doesn't happen, over time. Like you said, it's not never, but if we're talking about a 1 year goal, boy, that would be some other things would have to happen there. We have to catch the wind just right and all these kind of things. You mentioned goal setting. Where did you learn that from, and why is that such an important part of your program?
Goal setting is one of the things that I've read about, and then in one of those camps that I was telling you about every summer, we used to have different sports psychologists come out.
Mhm.
Dr. Jim Gordon was one of the main ones, and Dr. Rich. They used to come out and they used to talk about how you set your mind up. Like your mind has to be working in a certain kind of a way for you to be able to be successful. You can't come out and have no goals unless you're mega talented. Like, I mean, as a sidebar, there are some kids, and this is one of the hard parts of the sport. There's some kids that could come out and you could say jog 3 times around the building, climb up on the top and jump down, and then they'll go to the track meet and run the school record or a national leader because they're just that talented. It doesn't
Sure.
matter what you do. But for the rest of the kids, you gotta have there has to be a mindset. And so they talk about that and putting positive energy in and writing down your goals so you can see directly what you're trying to do. And I need to have goals as a coach. And that's what's important for me is that I need to say, hey, this person can run this fast. This is what so and so stride frequency is. We need to turn that up a notch to whatever it needs to be for them to run so fast. Or this person has a length problem. We need to deal with that. And so you can do the same workouts and the same training, like whatever, between two people, and they can be emphasized entirely different. So I can look for a certain workout with somebody, and I could say, this is what you're working on, and you're working on something different, but it could be the exact same workout,
Mm.
different mindset. So that's why I think goal setting is huge, and I think it's a big thing to do because the kids need to know where they're going.
How do you, and we're going to get back on your timeline here in a second, but I think this is an important topic to continue going down. How do you, as the coach, exercise that goal setting for your kids? And what I mean by that is, are you meeting with them once a year at the beginning? Do you have them write it down? Is it quarterly meetings? How do you, like, someone right now, someone's listening and they're like, well, yeah, I've always said goal setting is important, but I don't actually how to implement that. How do you today in 2025, because I'm sure it's iterated throughout your career, how do you today best actually do the goal setting with your athletes?
Well, two things. One of the things is that you have to look at goal setting as being like a part of practice.
Mm,
So you have to provide time to go to do your goal setting stuff. Like you can't just say, "Well, I'm not going to do it because we have too much other stuff to do," which I've done before. I'm somewhat guilty of that.
hmm
But what I try to do is put in, "Hey, we're going to lift today, and then we're going to go watch film." And then we do this every after every meet and sometimes after a week, but after every meet we pretty much watch film and then we'll go over the film like very is very highly technical and specific. Like, hey, your foot is not getting underneath you here. You're
Right.
looping your back foot in the blocks. You're doing these kinds of things. And we'll look at everybody's race and go over the thing. If it's good, there's not a lot of stuff we have to review, but we'll go over that. These are the things that you need to work on. This is where we have problems. And the thing is that sometimes the kids aren't flexible enough to do it.
hmm
Sometimes they're not
hmm
strong enough to do it, but they know that we're doing these things to accomplish that goal.
hmm
And we do those fairly often. We'll do individual sessions once every so often. It's harder to do because if you got 15 kids, that's hard because you got to pull one out of practice or you
Right.
got to do one at a time. And the kids got school and study hall and,
Right.
tutoring and all these kinds of things. But we'll definitely approach that. And so every one of my kids pretty much can tell you what they're doing wrong.
So it's not necessarily a year beginning thing. I'm hearing it's sprinkled out throughout your entire plan.
Yeah. And this is where you don't become good friends with the kids sometimes. It's like
Mm.
we started talking about this in October and we're in May and we still haven't cleaned this problem up. And the kids, I know, but the kids know because it's not something you just sprung on them in May talking about, well, I wish you would
Right.
have told me in October and we could have fixed this
Yeah.
early.
Yeah. So,
So,
so are your goals, and maybe it's different based on the athlete, maybe a freshman's different than a senior, et cetera. But I'm hearing your goals are less, I want to run 1080, I want to be an All-American, and more of the technical side of it. I want to be better in block. To do whatever I'm going to do in the 100, my blocks have to be better because I loop in the back, blah, 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 blah. Those become the goals. Or is it a combination
well,
of both?
those are the higher level goals. Like you talk about the basic goals that we start off with. Everybody has to write a goal sheet down.
Okay.
This is what I want to run in 100. This is what I want to run in the two. This is what I want to run in four hurdles, whatever.
hmm
Then they have placement goals. I want to win Pac-12s, or I want to
hmm
win NCAs, or I want to win whatever.
hmm
So they have a set of goals. We read them, make copies of them, give them back to the kids. Every now and then we'll pull out and say, "Hey, I thought you said your goal was this, that, and the other. We're trending away from
Mm.
that. We need to fix these things up or address some of these issues." Um, then we do training goals. So like if we do a test, say we do 30 fly tests or overhead and back or standing long jump or something like that, and we'll record those. And mainly for the 30 fly tests, I'm like, hey, this predicts that you can do this, this, and this. So these are our goals for right now. These are our intermediary goals until we hit your goal. Now, if you say you want to run 1080 and to run 1080, I'm just throwing a number out there. And to run
Yeah.
1080, is means you're gonna have to run 295 on your 30 flying. You're at 315. We got a long way to go. So let's look at the 315 goals first and work our
Right.
way down.
Right.
So there's various sets of goals, just like
Yeah.
various steps that you need to take to get to where you want to go.
I like how I want to make sure I pointed this out. I like how you use the goal setting as accountability for athletes as well. Hey, when we sat down, you wrote this down. I didn't write this down. You said you wanted
Right.
to do X, Y, and Z. Here we are. We're like, I think you said we're trending away from that. That's a very nice way of saying that, by the way. But you're trending away from that. Well, let's get
Right.
back onto it. So I love that accountability. Now, a very good coach, you already like answered my very next question that I wanted to make sure that we
Oh,
tackled
let
here.
me tell you one more thing. I'm sorry,
Please.
I didn't
No,
mean to interrupt
no,
you,
no,
but
you're
let me
good.
say
You're
one
good.
more thing that it just crossed my mind. Go. The other thing that we do that is popular and isn't popular, it just depends on the day, is or the group, is I get the kids to stand up in front of the group and read their goals out.
Oh,
Because now it's like as a group, we're gonna be accountable to each other.
yeah,
So
yeah,
if you see somebody doing something or that their behavior isn't the such that they're going to be able to reach their goals, you
yeah,
need to try to pull some people over and speak to them if they're your friends or a
yeah.
teammate, or you can say something. We should be able to police each other, not just the coaches coming down on the kids.
We talk a lot about culture and how do we hold each other accountable, and there's a great like actual action step people can take. So it's great, and you should have the coach to athlete goal setting and accountability. Now saying in front of your team, saying in front of the people you want to be on the 4x1 with, the 4x4 with, and that'll help. That just I feel like that would just naturally like, wait a minute, Susie, you told me you wanted to be X, Y, and Z, and I saw you at the party at 1 o'clock or whatever. Maybe a bad
Right.
example.
Right,
Like that's
exactly.
not going to help us and help you. Yeah, that's great. I love that. Thanks for adding that. That's really perfect. That's another key thing someone's going to be hearing right now and be able to implement that into their program and their culture. So as I was saying, you're always one step ahead of me. My follow-up question was going to be, what about you in goal setting? What do you do? I assume you're not doing technical, I want to make sure, my fly 30s are any good anymore. But what do you do, if anything, at this point in your career for goal setting, whether it's the coaching, like actual, the X's and O's of the athlete, or team goals, or how many points your team scores? Do you sit down with yourself and do some goal setting?
Well, I do some personal goal setting, which we'll get into a little bit after we do this. But for each kid, one, excuse me, a Tony Wellsism is that you should know all the details about your kids.
Mm.
And this is one of the things I have to do every year. And we talk about details. You should know their trochanter length,
Oh,
their
wow.
stride length, stride frequency, block settings, all these kinds of things, so you can make the determination on what you need to do next. Like there's basic math. I did this presentation for the USA Track and Field Cross Country, the
Hmm.
USFTCCA, whatever
Yep. Yep.
all the letters are. I did a presentation one year, and basically it was about taking those things and manipulating those numbers to get what you want. So, if, and we talked about this a little bit earlier, if your stride length is down, and your frequency is where it wants to be, you got to figure out a way, a plan to do these kinds of things. And if your athlete is even the athlete of the type and the body build to be able to accomplish the goals that you want to accomplish. So for me,
Hmm.
it's very important that for every kid that I have, and we have a system here now, which is good, that really helps this out. But every athlete that I have, I need to know all of those numbers, and I need to be able to go down. Well, here we have an office downstairs where we have a TV computer screen in it, and we can pull up all the videos. We take probably something out of every practice. Um, Whether it's block starts or sprint mechanics or something, and then it's up to me and our other sprint coach, um, Dr. Adeniji. She comes down and we'll look at them and we'll we'll find out what's going on with each, and we send them to the kids. The kids get to take a look at them and see what they think is going right or they think is going wrong, and then we'll discuss it. But it's my responsibility as a coach and her responsibility as a coach to be able to look at these things and be able to break down and say, hey, this was her stride length, stride frequency here. This is where position wise she was missing. And that those are the other things that I need to know as a coach. Like what are the general flaws? Not necessarily always what's going on with stride length and stride frequency, but what's causing those things to be limited or too the numbers too large. Like
Right.
without getting too technical, you obviously you don't want this either one of those things to be the maximum. You need those
Right.
numbers at optimums, and
Optimal.
you
Yeah.
know you need to figure out why, if they're not, why they're not, and what you can do about it.
Right.
So that's my responsibility as a coach, and my other responsibility is just to be there, to be present. And it's easy to be at practice and not
Mhm.
at practice. It's like some days it's like, let me go in here and so on and so forth. And, because it's just, it's a long run. Like NCAAs are a long run. And there's a reason
Yeah.
why the college kids get tired when they come to Worlds or they come to, because you got this indoor thing, you got all fall you're training. Like the professionals won't start training till November-ish,
Yeah.
and they take their time slow. They don't take indoors seriously. This is, indoors is our bread and butter. So we
Right.
got to do that and then come back again for outdoors and then do USAs. And then if you're
Yeah.
fortunate to make a team, it's hard to hold it together that long.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Hard, not impossible. But it is hard. You're right.
hard, not impossible.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's right. Okay, let's get back on our timeline here.
All
So
right.
you said your goal was, okay, I want to be one of these community colleges that are teaching and getting tenure and coaching, so I can do my thing. And you mentioned somewhere around where we left off was when you started working on your master's, and that's part of your tenure there in the California community system, if I remember correctly. Pick us
Right. You
up.
have to have a master's
Yeah,
degree.
so pick us up there.
Okay. So, where was I? So
Merritt College around there somewhere, I think.
I started, yeah, I started very good knowledge. I started I started the club.
Hmm.
Club was going well and everything. We got a lot of kids from the area and in the community and whatnot. And then we needed a place to practice. And remember, I was telling you we used
Right,
to practice at Merritt and the track was bad and all that kind of
that's right.
stuff. But it was actually turned out to be a blessing for us. Um, and then they asked me, well, then they had given me a key to the shed, and then then the guy who's the key master basically for the college called me up on the phone. I don't know where he got my phone number. He's like, "Hey, this is so and so. I need you to come down and open the container up. We don't have any things." And now Merritt is like 5 minutes from my house. I'm like, "Yeah, no problem. I'll run over there." So I go down there and I open the shed up, and he's like, "This is where the lost key is. I'm keeping this key and I'm not giving it back to you."
That was his job. The key, he had the keys, right?
He set me up. He wanted the key back. And so he got the key back. And then I was like, well, we have nowhere to practice now. And then Coach Compton and he asked me, he's like, hey, do you want a job here? We need another coach so we can come on and coach. You can come on and help coach here. So I was like, sure, bet. I'd love to coach some of these JC kids.
Hmm.
So I started coaching JC there. And then I went over to San Francisco City College with Doug Oyang
Yeah.
because he had gotten a lot of my kids from Skyline.
Hmm.
So, I had helped out at Skyline. I coached, oh, we didn't get into that. I coached for 3 years at Skyline, some of the best years of my life, some of the most talented athletes ever. Um, we had like 5 state champions in 3 years. And in California, it's hard to have a state
Yeah.
champion
Holy cow.
because it's just one division. It's not like a D1, 2, 3, 4, 5,
Right.
6. It's like everybody's got to make it through
Hmm.
the rounds and get down there. Um, and so a lot of those kids didn't have the grades, and so they ended up going to San Francisco City College. And so Doug, who is one of my personal mentors and a great guy, Doug Oyang, Doug asked me to come up and help him at San Francisco City, and I did that and had couple of JC state champs and some
Wow.
good things down there and won a couple of titles. Um, Came back to Merritt
Hmm.
and then Coach Compton, just because it was closer and Coach Compton said their job's gonna open up at Laney and I'm going to refer you to it. And Doug said the same thing because Doug had actually gone to Laney,
Hmm.
and then Proverb Jacobs, who was the former head coach at Laney, he had recommended me too. So everybody was like, all things were pointing to like, just
Hmm.
go ahead and apply for this job, and the job's yours. Then I had one of the people. And I don't know if this is, I guess the statute of limitations is over for this. But I had one of the people call me up and give me all the interview questions. So I was prepared to the interview. They wanted me to have this job. Like I said, things just started falling into place, man. And so yeah, I got the job and
Yeah,
things
if you didn't get the job, what's wrong with you?
yeah, I'd have done something. I had to have done something really stupid and offensive in my interview. So yeah,
Oh
that's how
man.
I got to the JC, and then I got
Yeah.
this job. It was a full-time position, tenure track, and everything. Like I can honestly say, and I was telling somebody this story yesterday, ironically, I can honestly say that I never had one single day when I was coaching at Laney that I did not want to go to work.
Oh, really?
Never had a day like that. There's some days, for every other job that I've been in this job, there's a lot of pressure here, and
Yeah.
that's a
Yeah.
whole nother story. It's not a bad thing, it's part of the culture here at the University of Oregon. But while I was there, I just it was just every day was a great day. And it seemed like I
Wow.
look back on it, it seemed like every day was sunny, there was no rain. It was
Yeah.
just a great experience for me, and I was happy to have gotten it. So
Can
uh,
you, I love one of our goals here is, we have coaches from all levels. So high school, D1, D2, D3, NAIA, junior college, etc. You might be and not, I have all grace that after 300 and something interviews, I do not remember every single one, but I'm pretty sure you're one of the first California community college coaches, someone who spent a long time in that system. Can you explain to us a little bit? That's a unique system. We've had several junior college NJCA coaches but we haven't really maybe explored or haven't done it in a long time. The California community college system. Can you explain some of the uniquenesses around recruiting? The state meet, that kind of stuff, the NorCal, SoCal state meet, things like that. Can you give us a little bit of background on the uniquenesses there?
well, one of the things about California community colleges, you can't really recruit. Like there's area codes. Like now there's been more area codes added. Like you can't call on your phone, any of your phones, because they can ask you. Like I could call 405 405. I could call, excuse me, 510 925, but I couldn't call 707. Now, these people are all bordered against each other. I couldn't call 415, but I could call 650.
Hmm.
So there are certain numbers that you can. If someone that you recruit lives in one of those area codes, you can't recruit them. Like I can't go down and get kids from LA and recruit them. Now, they can come up here and show up here, but you can't do that. Like, we had, when I first came there, they had kids from Jamaica
Hmm.
and kids, they weren't very good, but they were still Jamaicans. And we had a girl from Tonga.
Hmm.
And I was like, how can we even get these kids here? They don't even speak English. Like, and so we got a new president, and the president was like, we're not having any more of the shenanigans. We're gonna get in trouble. There's a lot of rule breaking
Yeah.
in
If there's rules, there's rule
community
breakers.
college.
Right. Yeah. 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 So
But it's
the
hard. Recruiting is hard there. So I got a lot of kids from, just a local area. I knew a lot of people, and then I had the feeder system because I still had the club.
hmm.
So I could get kids that weren't academically eligible or ready for college athletically or academically.
Hmm.
But yeah, it's a challenge, man. You got conference, and then you got conference championship, and then you got NorCal trials, NorCal finals, and then you have the state meet is all on one day. It's not a 2-day meet in California.
Hmm.
It's just like they take the top four from the north and the top four from the south, and you just go battle it out.
Okay.
Um, yeah, it's just like it's very, very California-ish.
Yeah. So
Like,
so on the area code thing, which they can't do that today, right? I mean, because area codes travel today. They must do
yeah,
like
I don't think they could do that today. That's what it was when I
yeah,
left.
they must do like zip codes or something now.
They'll do zip codes, they'll do all
Yeah.
kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
And I think,
So
or they might have just got rid of it totally.
I last my memory serves, and I certainly haven't seen like an influx of, the other 49 states into the
Right.
California community college system. But so by rule, you had to recruit by area code. But if a kid from Miami calls you or shows up, you could recruit that kid.
Right. I could
Oh,
recruit, they could be on the team, but they got to pay out of state fees because California community college is extremely cheap and used to
yeah.
be free. And last I heard, they were talking about going back to free
Wow.
or low level. So they don't want, if you're out of state, you got to pay extra. I had a kid from Portland one time who they got to do all of the stuff themselves. Like you could tell them what they need to do, but you can't do it for them.
Wow.
They need
Okay.
to fill out all these waivers and do all this kind of a thing. And so,
So they
you know,
really put the community in community college. They wanted from that local community.
yeah, they want it from because there's taxes. Like, believe me, I
Right.
still have a house out there in California
Oh,
Bay, and they raise your taxes every year to pay for some sort of a bond. Like, we
yeah,
just
something.
need Laney just got a new track and a new
Right.
football field, and
Yeah.
now they passed some sort of a bond to where jack my taxes up for an extra $20 a year. So.
Hey, be glad it's only 20. That's good. That's not bad in today's world. Okay, so that's the recruiting aspect. And then instead of having a national championship like an NJCAA or NCAA, you guys had call it a NorCal versus SoCal state meet, and that was your national championship, right? The winners of that didn't go on to the NJCAA national championship or anything.
No, not at all. That's the end of the championship for us. We ended up getting ranked with the rest of the teams. Like Fred Bear. Do you remember Fred Bear?
Yeah, of course.
Fred does some sort of a ranking every year. Or he used to. I have
Hmm.
not seen Fred
Yeah, I don't
for
think
about
so.
8, 9 years, so I
Yeah.
don't know how at what level he's still involved in that. But there's a Frank Bear or a Fred Bear or Fred Bear type
Hmm.
that does all these things, so he
Yeah.
mixes everything together.
Yeah, perfect. And the California community college system, this is from the outsider's perspective, was unique in the sense of like every coach taught, right? Like it was a almost, I'll say, I don't know if it was a requirement or almost a requirement. You had to have a master's and teach.
You had to you have a track class and then you have a track adjunct class, maybe where you do weight. But while I was there, I taught tennis, badminton,
Hmm.
aerobics. I had a walking class, weight training, basketball, something else. One more class that I took. I taught all those classes, and so they'd mix them in there. And I love those classes, man. You meet a lot of the people in the community and stuff,
Hmm.
especially the tennis. I love tennis. And then we had
Yeah.
a little team, and I used to coach on the tennis team, and
Hmm.
these kinds of things. I've coached every sport, man.
Yeah.
Tennis, basketball, football, track. At some point in time.
I thought you had to teach, like I thought you were going to tell me you taught a kines class or
I did teach a kines class. That's what I forgot.
yeah.
I taught a kines class and I taught a health class. I started getting fixated on the sports classes.
Uh,
Yeah, I taught those two.
Well,
So,
obviously, Laney has a big place in your heart. You said every day was sun shining and smiling and all that. How many years at Laney and why
8.
leave?
Why leave? Why leave was a good question. It's a two-pronged answer. Um, so Robert became a good friend of mine. Robert had some of my kids that went down to UCLA, some of my good kids. And I remember
Right.
he coached, you probably won't remember Renee Williams. She was a 21-foot long jumper and a 44-foot triple jumper. And Robert was having trouble with Renee. And Robert was like, how can you coach this girl, man? She's terrible. And I was like, she's a great kid. You just got to get used to her. And then we talked it out and we became good friends. So Robert called me up and Robert asked me, he said, I might be getting a job in North Carolina. And so he's like, do you want to go? I was like, absolutely not. And he's like, why not? And I was like, I don't want to move to North Carolina. I don't want to do that. I'm not familiar. I looked at places there, but I said, I'm not going to go.
I was like, sorry to
So,
interrupt, but that's a great point. Your entire career is kind of within this a very small geographical footprint up to this point.
oh yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
just
yeah.
San Francisco Bay Area. That
Hmm,
was
hmm.
everything. And so then Robert said, what if I get the job at Oregon? They're trying to give me the job at Oregon. I said, well, I might consider it. And then so I had a fiance at the time. And she was like, we need to go to Oregon. We need to go to Oregon. I'm like, I don't want to go to Oregon. I'm involved. I got roots to the community here. If I go to Oregon, it's not going to be a lot to do. It's cold and everything. And so she kept forcing it on me. And then Robert didn't hire anybody. And I was like, why don't you hire somebody for the job, Rob? And Rob was like, I'm not hiring nobody until you take this job. And he went a whole year with no assistant. Um, and so finally she talked me into it. I said, let's go. And I said, I'll go for a year. So I got a year. They gave me a year to knock off at Laney and said, take your year off. We'll let you come back after a year.
Wow, that says a lot what they thought about you too.
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
nice, both places. Um, and so I came up here and then things went well our first year, and then I had established some great relationships with the kids. My fiance hated it.
Oh.
She left and moved to Arizona, which, well, we'll get into that at another point in time. But she left, and so I stayed. And then I went and applied. Then they asked me to come back to Laney 2 years later, and then I went back and applied again and got the job. And then the kids asked me not to leave. So I ended
Do
up
you
turning the job
know I,
in.
I'm trying to imagine the social media chatter if you would have left Oregon to go back to Laney for many reasons that are true and then many reasons that people don't understand the reality of some things. Oregon in track and field world is the mecca. And what I mean by that is everybody would want to work there. It's perfect. Nothing ever is wrong. You guys want for nothing. All these things. And I say that's actually not true because I still remember visiting Robert one day and going out to practice, and he's turning his own pits. And I was like,
Oh
Robert,
yeah.
I was like, if I were to have asked 100 coaches, who do you think turns pits at Oregon? No, zero would have said the head coach. They would have said you have 100 managers that do that, or it's Oregon. It just happens on its own, whatever.
Right. They got an
Everybody
automatic pit
thought
that
about it. Yeah,
turns
exactly.
itself.
Exactly. A lot of people don't, from the outside looking in, don't realize that every institution, Oregon, USC, Georgia, Florida, it doesn't matter, everywhere in between, has their pun intended hurdles to get over. You still got to get kids into school. You got to attract kids to, like, just like your attitude of going up there. You're like, man, it's cold. Or you got to attract kids to that as well. Not nowhere in this country is it perfect 100%. It's just not.
Right.
And that includes a great place like Eugene, Oregon as well.
Exactly. I
So
just,
go ahead, go.
no, no, no. I don't think people understand that. And it's a lot to do. But yeah. Uh I ended up making it work. But they've done a lot of things for us and tried to make our jobs easier. But
Yeah.
it's a tougher job than most. And we set up a good model for everything else. And a lot of people, have shared this model and have excelled with it, and done a really good job.
What
So
we're staring at the 2026 season. What year at Oregon will this be coming up in 26 for you?
wow, that's I started in 14,
14,
14 season 26, 12. It'll either be
12.
it'll be either 13, because you count
Yeah,
14.
yeah. I lose that math too. I'm with you on that. Okay. All right. So
Um,
12,
and then one
13.
year I didn't coach because of the pandemic.
Right. Yeah, we count that though. Yeah. What have you like? So you came from, I don't want to I don't want to overstate this, but you came from a fairly meager background, meaning coaching at the club. You had no track. You were,
Right.
you'd go to the gym Mondays and Fridays. I know the community college system. You already said, one track was the American track was burnt and things like that. And then you get to a great facility and great budgets and things like that. What have you had to change about yourself, your oh, not outcome, but how you view things uh, during your 10 plus years at Oregon?
Well, the first thing that I noticed, like, it's a pendulum swing. So here we don't have anything. Like at Laney, like, and we didn't care. So at Laney,
Mm,
here's a story. Once again, the hopefully the statutes of limitation have run out on this one as well. But we used to get $15 a day per diem, like when we had a track meet.
right.
So I'd give the kids their per diem, and the kids wouldn't, hey, you guys want to go get some sandwiches? Nope. You want to do something? They were pocketing the per diem. They wouldn't eat, they wouldn't buy water for the track meet or anything like that. And I'd be like, somebody's gonna get hurt.
Hmm.
So what I did was I stopped giving the kids the per diem,
Hmm.
and I would take the per diem money and go to one of the big box stores and get Gatorade and
Right.
peanut butter and bread and orange juice and granola bars and a whole bunch of stuff like that. And we get and bought some ice chests, and we used to throw it all in the ice chest. And they used to go, and kids would be making some lunch meat and stuff like that. And the kids would be making sandwich after sandwich after sandwich to a point where I was like, somebody would run the hurdles and then be done. Like that's the first event, and then be done for the rest of the day, and then sit there and eat the sandwiches. And then the 4x4 kids would have no food. And so I'd be like, you guys got to be more cognizant of who's eating and who hasn't and stuff like that. Or we wanted some backpacks. I got some sort of a deal with Nike where they would give us stuff cheaper, but it wasn't free. And so we do 50-50 raffle at the football games. Like,
Yeah.
we were supposed to give half to the football team and half to the track team, but it was the track girls who were selling the raffle tickets. So I give the football team a certain amount of money, and then I keep the rest for ourselves. But they got money too. And so we be doing that, and we get by the end of football season, they get a hat and a backpack, and maybe we get some new uniforms and stuff like that.
Right.
And the kids I still have some of those backpacks here, and they love the backpacks and they love the hat. And then when I came here, it was pendulum swing back this way.
Hmm.
I hate this stuff. We get too much stuff. I don't want any more of it. And
No way.
I was like, do you know what we had to do to get a hat? Like it'd be out in the rain, and you're standing out there and selling stuff to people. It was just different. And so my experience, there was not the drive, the hunger drive wasn't there. But we at that time we didn't have a lot of sprinters.
Right.
When I first got here, we had like 6 or 7 kids, and
Yeah,
that
it's
was
different today. Yeah, right.
yeah, yeah, it's a little different.
Yeah. Meaning the culture of sprints and hurdles at the University of Oregon. That's
Yeah,
fairly radically different. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. How do you, again, I almost called the podcast the Mythbusters podcast, Curtis, because I like to bust myths. And again, one of those myths, this isn't knocking down Oregon, because I have a lot of love and admiration for the university and the athletic department. I mean, we've been honored and blessed to be chosen from Gill equipment before I even got here. So I'm just, I'm always very grateful for their choosing. But I like for people to see reality. So, one of the myths is, Oregon doesn't even have to recruit. You just go out and pick the however many kids you're going to have this year, 5, 6, 7, freshmen. But that's not true. You have a lot of competitors out there. You know that. Do you have to, like, I would imagine, I'm putting myself in an 18 year old shoe. I'm good enough to be recruited by an Oregon, which means I'm good enough to be recruited by a lot of other institutions. Even if I didn't want to go to Oregon, I feel like I would, if you offered an official visit, I would take an official visit, Curtis, just to see, I hear all this stuff. That's great. I'm not going, but I'm going to go see it. And that's a waste of your time, resources, etc. Do you have to be extra like diligent on who you bring in for official to make sure they're actually seriously considering university, or am I just completely off base that that doesn't even happen?
So I could go more into detail with the whole thing, but I'm going to answer the last question first. Is that there's certain kids, I've been able to get a profile of the kind of kids that we can get here. Um, and if you're really good, the profile doesn't matter. We're going to bring you in regardless. If you're good enough, um, even if I know in my heart we're not going to get you.
Hmm.
You're right. A bunch of kids want to come to Oregon because they see the uniforms, they see the stadium, they see all of this stuff, but they're not really interested in coming here. They just want to come on the visit. We get a lot of that.
Hmm.
It's a challenging place. Um, and I'm debating whether to get into this or not. But how all of this started, again, it was one of those perfect storm type things. Um, USC was having problems. Cal and Stanford never were strong. Let me back up a little bit. Most schools are successful when they have a hotbed in their backyard.
Of course.
Texas schools, all the schools in the South, they got all those fast kids
Yep.
and they're sprint oriented. Even the worst kids in the SEC are better than most kids in other places.
Hmm.
So we have to compete against that.
Right.
And they want to kids want to go to school there. They want to go where it's hot. They want to go where it's ethnically diverse.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things that happen. So I have to get kids that want to come here and maybe aren't as great as the other kids. Like some of these kids that came out were 11. Deja Stevens.
Hmm.
Deja was 1178, 23, 18. Once she ran it once in 54 some change. She split 50 point for us, ran 2209, which is still one of the fastest collegiate times ever.
Yeah.
And 1077 windy, 11 flat. She made the Olympic team as a sophomore here,
Right.
finished sixth or seventh in the final out of lane one.
But those
Uh,
weren't, I mean, there were plenty of girls ahead of her on the list coming
there
out of high
were,
school.
there were. And so my point being that she was a JC kid and I'm familiar with the JC system.
Hmm.
So she fit my profile. So I was heavy and hard on her or uh uh Hannah Cunliffe or Alasia Johnson
Right.
or Sasha Wallace, who I happened to coach in high school. I knew she was going to be really good.
Right.
And Robert actually recruited her more than I did. The only really great kids we had come in here who were great off the bat. Jenna was very good high schooler,
Hmm.
but she wasn't great.
Right.
And Ariana Washington was great in high
Right.
school.
Right. Right.
But
Right.
Kimber Nelson, who set the
Yeah.
national in the 60 and won a couple of titles, she was 1150, 1149 in Jamaica as a collegiate kid. She
Wow.
transferred out of UTEC and came up here.
Okay.
So, and ran 1088 and made the Jamaican
Yeah. Yeah.
World Championships team. And, those are the kind of kids that I know we're going to get. The girl, Alana, we signed a lot of good kids and we had a
Hmm.
lot of good kids on the string that never made it because of academics or otherwise. And
Right.
but we have to pick and choose because I know who's going to come here. And, it's hard when everybody's saying, why don't you recruit this kid? I'm like, because they'll never come here. And you hit the nail on the head. You spend time and resources, and everybody's always like, I'm not never take no for an answer, but I'm like, we only have a certain amount of time, and I'd rather spend money on people who may come here and who have an opportunity that they find advantageous as opposed to somebody just like, all my friends are going, I want to
Yep.
hang out, I want to do the photo shoot. Like there's
Yeah.
literally kids who want to come here and do the photo shoot
Right.
with the uniforms on.
Yeah.
And
There's no bigger fan of track coaches than this guy right here. And I still sometimes have to push back on a coach who says, oh, it doesn't matter where I go, I'll be successful as a recruiter. And it's like, oh, what is successful at Tiffin University over there, Miami University, North Dakota State. It's all different because of the school, what you can get into school, your location, your facilities, what your head coach wants. You know, some head coaches are like, yeah, we're going to be distance and throw. So you're not going to be Curtis. You could go to that institution and they give you one scholarship, and it's like, yeah, you're not going to have 12 girls running 11 flat. I don't care how great you are. You're not going to get the money for it to recruit. So every place is different, and you got to be able to. The good coaches are the ones who adapt and go, okay, I got to coach. I got to recruit this type of athlete to this place, this different kind of athlete over here, and then coach them up to be really, really good. But the ones that just think they can be good because of who they are, it's like, oof, there's go try that in Syracuse. See how that works. What worked for you down there in LA? That's not going to play up in Syracuse. It's different in every place.
Yeah, that's what it is. These things don't necessarily work out like it should be. It
Mm-hmm.
just it's got to play itself out in according to where you are and who you're against. Like I've told people, like if you're in Texas, Texas is a hard place because there's a hierarchy there. So like people are generally going to go to Texas first, then maybe A&M. So
Mm-hmm.
Texas, Texas A&M are 1, 2, 1A,
All
1B.
right, all right.
And then Baylor comes in around two, and then Texas Tech 2A,
Mm-hmm.
2B. And
Mm-hmm.
then you got TCU who's on the rise
Yep,
now.
yep.
And then you got SMU and you got Houston and you got all these people. But if you're Houston or you're TCU or Stephen F. Austin or one of those kinds of schools, you know you're not going to get the kids. They will come to all of those schools before they come to your school.
Right.
And um, when we were started, here, like I was saying before, USC wasn't doing that good. Cal wasn't doing a great job. Stanford, they're all good. Edric did a great job at Stanford,
Mm-hmm.
but they weren't like a number one choice. UCLA had kind of fallen down a little
Mm-hmm.
bit at that particular time, and so it was easier for kids to come to Oregon. Oregon was, a mystery school. And then we had set up things in Northern California to where I had transferred my club off to one of my assistant coaches. And so we were still strong in Northern California, good athletes coming out of there. So we would pick some of the Northern California kids, like Keisha Baker and
Oh yeah.
Chizoba and Sasha Wallace and some other people that came, all won national championships and did well out of Northern California that people didn't necessarily want because they weren't on everyone's radar.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so, but once SC got better and Stanford started doing a little better, which is harder to get kids into,
Right.
and UCLA, Curtis came and he picked off a few people. I remember I recruited this kid real hard. Cameron, what is Cam's last name? It's not Wheeler. That's a different one. Whatever Cam's last name is, I have to remember him now. He went to UCLA. He ran 45-4 for them. And I wanted him out of high school. And he was basically committed. And then when I called him up and I was like, what's it going to be, dog? And he was like, I'm going to UCLA, coach. And I was like, why UCLA? Well, he was him and Hans. Why UCLA? He said, because it's closer. I'm like, it's not closer. It's the same distance from, and normally I don't ask kids why, but Robert wanted me to ask him why and said it's the same distance from, UCLA to what you call it. So, well,
Right,
it's a
right.
and it's sunny or some whatever they come up with. So it's a very challenging
Yeah.
situation now. So it's a little bit different, and kids are looking for different things. But you'll have
Yeah.
kids not come for reasons and some that come for reasons, and it's a little bit different all the time.
So another myth, and the one that I push back a lot, and it certainly has been amplified because of the whole roster limits and things like that, is that you, Curtis Taylor, I'm going to make you the representative of all Power Four coaches here. You do not want to develop athletes anymore. You only want ready-made, hit the ground running All Americans. There's no more development of athletes in the Power Four in that Power Four division. So I love your examples of 1150 kids and 1170 kids, and not the 1110 out of high school necessarily, or the 50 point. You had a 54 point 4x4 split who ended up going 50 point. You developed. I push back on that because even if you were to get 11 flat out of high school, Curtis, you've got to make her a 1090 kid to win or a 1080 kid. And that's development. Again, that we talked about earlier about that percentage. Once as you get better and better, the percentage is harder. 1090, 11 flat to 1090, you've done an amazing job. So there is development. Do you think, as your experience so far, and as you kind of look at your crystal ball at 2026, 2027, with the roster limits, and I don't remember how many kids Oregon would hold in the roster pre-roster limits. Um, do you think that myth is going to become more and more true, where you're only going to be able to get, you're just using the women's 100-meter dash, you're only going to be able to afford 11 kids, and I'm sorry if you're 1130, we don't have a spot for you? Or does development like you've been doing still have a place in the roster limit world that's coming up, or is here, I guess?
Well, two things. One is that, yeah, it depends on what you do as a school. So schools are gonna do exactly what you said. They're gonna go through picking the way they run their program. So I think you hit the nail on the head. Maybe you go, distance and throws, or distance and multis, or multis and jumps, or jumps and sprints, or whatever you do, and you put your emphasis on that. So, for example, you have, let's see, 30, 40, let's just call 45 scholarships. And here's the biggest problem is that schools can make a decision whether they want to fund all of the scholarships or whether they want to just fund a certain percent. Schools are going to stick with the 18 and 12.6.
Right.
So if I'm a sprint school, I'm going to throw a lot of money at the sprints. So, throw a bunch of stuff at the wall, see what sticks. You get some kids. And with the transfer portal being accessible like it is, then the kids just, yeah, you can go ahead and transfer out, and some kids will transfer out. But if you're a distance coach at that kind of a program, you're not going to get a lot of people. So as a head coach, you say, hey, we're going sprints, hurdles, jumps. The distance kids that we're bringing in, we need them to be ready to score because you're not going to have a lot of them.
Right.
And it works both ways. If you went the opposite way, we need them
Yeah.
ready to score. But the harder part is that you could bring distance kids in here who are ready to score that aren't at the same level the sprint kids are. Like if you could score at the NCAA meet, you're probably one of the top 20 kids in the world
Yeah, sure. Right.
in the
Absolutely.
sprints.
Yeah, for sure.
You could be a regular person and have some sort of a weird tactical race
Yeah.
and be a scorer, or make it through and make it on and not even be that great and not someone that you would go out and you would covet out of high school.
Right. Right.
And the second thing is like what we did here is we layered kids.
Hmm.
And what I mean by that is we get kids like I don't know if you remember Jasmine Todd.
Hmm.
We had Jenna and we had her group, Jenna and Phyllis. And then after that, we
Hmm.
had Jasmine and Ariana and then Hannah and then Deja and then Kimber. Like we had kids where we always had a kid who was coming up behind them, and they
Right.
weren't great kids; they were developmental kids. Mackenzie Dunmore,
Hmm.
Alexis Guster,
Yeah.
all these were 50-point quarter milers. Like we held the national record at three different times in the 4x4.
That's right.
And then held it one year. We held the national record in the 4x1, 4x2, 4x4, sprint medley, distance
Wow.
medley, and that was, those were just kids that were here, and they were just. We didn't go out to set these records. We just did it one day. One day we set two of those records, and we were just playing around. We were at spring break and threw some kids out there, and we had all those records until Edric broke them with
Yeah.
and Alfred and all of those guys.
Right.
And then, of course, the great job that the Johnson boys are doing down there at Arkansas, and
Yes.
they took one of our records off that 320. Um, but anyway, but those were layered kids, not to talk about the accomplishments or anything, but
Right,
those
right, right.
that just came up after another.
Hmm.
Now, if you don't have that, you're banking on some kid that, first of all, you're banking on a kid, which is always one of the reasons why I never was real thrilled about coming to Division One. Is like I don't want to base what I eat on an 18-year-old. So that's always been a thing. But yeah, it's going to be hard, and it's going to go both directions.
Hmm.
Where you you bring on somebody and you don't give them time to develop because you want to keep that roster spot open or you want to keep the money, one or the other.
Hmm.
But I had an experience with a coach not too long ago where I was recruiting a kid and they were recruiting a kid, and they made a better offer than we did. And I asked the coach, I mean, this is a friend of mine, so it wasn't a personal thing, but it was a friend of mine. And it was like, what made you decide to offer this person that amount of money? They're like, well, I got a bunch of scholarships, so if they didn't pan out, that's fine.
Hmm.
We'll get somebody else. And that's the mentality
Yeah.
that's out there. And it has to be. It's a business. I mean, and I have to tell parents this all the time when I recruit them. It's like, you guys got to remember that, as much as we like you and as much as things are going on, you're basically at a job that's going to pay you, $90 an hour or something crazy. You're there 2 days a week and you're getting 2 days a week. You're there 5 days a week for 2 hours
Right.
and you're making $100,000+ a year worth of services and educational
Right.
expenses. And we're here to make sure you graduate and to make sure you get better in track and field. This is you can't lose sight of that.
Yeah.
Um, and as much as you like to say that it's for the kids, and it should be, it's getting less and less so just because of these things. And it's football driven.
Yeah.
So,
How, you mentioned scoring. So you've got this globally for NCAA thing happening, these roster limits, NILs, all that kind of stuff. But Oregon, along with a couple of our West Coast friends, you've also now joined the Big Ten. And, I'm right here in Champaign, Illinois, University of Illinois. We're in Big Ten country. I still can't wrap my head when I heard, I guess almost 2 years ago now, Big Ten outdoor track championships at University of Oregon. That was just so weird to me. But you've had to go into a whole new conference. How has that, if at all, has that affected your recruiting and your coaching? How is that? Or is it just like, you know what, it's another 10 teams, Mike. I still got to be the best because they're all stinking good.
well, I don't, I don't really know how to. It's challenging. Like I said, we're coach to coach, and so this is not like you and I were having a coach to coach conversation. Anybody who looks at this moving forward, it's not going to be like Oregon so much or Big Ten, Big 12 so much. But so I'm gonna be honest about it and say that it makes no sense to me when you got someone coming from the Pac-12 conference going to the Atlantic Coast Conference. It's like you're going from one coast to the other and you expect these kids. Matter of fact, side story. There's coaches that coach here at the school that live in my neighborhood. So one night we were just sitting out, it was hot, and we had the lounge chairs out, and we're sitting out in front, and one of the coaches from another sport, she was somebody asked us who was just sitting out there with us. They were like, "Hey, what do you think about these kids moving into the schools moving to a new conference?" And I said, "I think it's ridiculous." And they're like, "Why so?" And I was like, "I don't think the athletic standpoint of it is bad. I just think it's hard for the kids." And then they were like, "What do you mean by that?" I said, "Well, think about this. We play someone like softball or volleyball that plays two games on a weekend. They play on Thursday and Saturday, and they got to fly out to Rutgers and play. And then they finish Saturday, Sunday afternoon, and then they got to fly back. They get back here about 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, and then they got class
Yep.
on Monday morning. I mean, that's unfair.
Yeah.
And we expect them to stay eligible and get good grades, and we're flying them all around the country. And football has charters, so it's
Yeah.
easier for them, but they're not going to charter the lacrosse and they're not going to charter softball. Well, maybe softball, but most of these sports aren't going to get chartered.
Right.
Soccer for sure. Um, and so it makes it hard on the kids. And so that's how I feel about it. I mean, I understand where this is going. Like in 10 years, I expect it to be at a point where there's just going to be two big divisions. There's going to be a West Coast, the West Division and the
Right.
East Division, and they're going to have some sort of a top eight playoff or something out of that
Yeah.
from each division, and then break it down to a national championship. Because football, way is the tail that wags the dog,
Yeah.
and you know,
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head there. For track and cross country, I don't think it matters because it's only, if you take all three sports, it's only three meets a year and you're already, traveling to Penn Relays or something like that to come to Champaign for the Big Ten championships. It's not like you have to come several times throughout the year. You could stay West Coast and then come out for the Big Ten. But for our baseball, volleyballs, oh my goodness, I can't imagine with the amount of game in basketballs, the games they play, going, using the UCLA and Rutgers. I don't know how that works, and
I,
expect kids to still study and
I
still
don't
get
either.
grades.
They're
Yeah,
like, you can't get further across the country than going from UCLA to Rutgers. Like, the only thing worse would be going from Seattle to Miami.
yeah, right.
That would be crazy.
Yeah.
And, you
And
know,
and I just don't understand, like, growing up. So you mentioned growing up where you grew in up there in Oakland, Raiders fans and A's and things like that. How does someone growing up in LA, growing up whether a USC or UCLA fan, how do they get excited for the Rutgers game or the Maryland game or even the Illinois game? Those are non-existent people. They want to go up against the Washington because they're up the road and Fresno State and things like that. Just I just thought the regionality of collegiate sports was always kind of the special side of it because of the rivalries and things like that. And just seems like this has lost all aspects of that.
yeah, I believe so.
Yeah,
I think it's
amazing.
just a mess, man.
Yeah,
And not a mess per se, like, but I think what's happening is we've lost the educate back and this will kind of put it all together for
yep,
you. One of the things that I told my fiance when she was trying to coax me into coming up here was I was like, there's no there's no I don't there's no kids to help. It's not the same way. I'm not trying to help these kids climb up the ladder and do all the things that we do here.
yeah,
There's not a lot about it. And so I want to help kids. And that was one of the reasons I love track and I wanted to do all the track stuff for sure.
right.
Um, but at the same time, it was enhanced by trying to help kids grow up and get out of the thing. Like
Yeah,
almost all of my junior college kids, I'd probably say 85% of them all graduated. And then a lot of them went on to grad school and a couple of them are doctors and attorneys now and kids that probably just never wouldn't have had the opportunity.
right,
And so part of coaching is providing opportunity. But what's happening now is that, which makes it hard, is that we've gone past the educational part and the opportunity part to just,
yeah,
being a cash cow.
yeah,
And that's not nothing against, I support all of these people are just doing their job. Our AD Rob is, he's doing his job and does a great job and tries to make things on balance for the school
right,
and these people like that. And so everybody's doing what they're supposed to do. And so it's the not the people as much as it's the structure that's been developed. And
right.
like, Mike, if they told you they were going to give you $5 million to do something, you'd have to really consider it. You know what I'm saying? You'd have to be like,
Yeah,
well, $5 million is a lot of money. It's
yeah,
something that I got to take seriously. It's not something that
right,
I'm just going to say, no, I'd never do that. It's
right.
like, So let
Right.
me sleep on this a little bit and figure out, where this is going.
Right. Yeah, because you're not doing anything amoral in the sense of you're not physically hurting kids, and you're not being asked to uh, push down someone else. It's, hey, we're going to give you a lot of money to go be the best you can be in whatever sport, specifically here in the athletic department, that you can be. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. A lot of sense.
Yeah. And go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, I was going to say we're getting near our time. I want to be respectful of your time. I'm so grateful for you, Curtis. I like to ask this as kind of my last question to lead into finalizing here. As you look into your crystal ball and look into the future, and you get to define what the future is, if it's whether it's 1 year or 5 years ahead, what's got you excited about your kids, the program there, University of Oregon? What's got you excited as you look ahead to the future here?
Well, the future's unknown. So what I always look for, and like I don't know how this is gonna shake out. Like you couldn't have told me we were gonna miss a whole year
Yeah.
for a quarantine for the virus,
All right.
and then we were gonna give everybody, because people can be 5 years and 6 years, and you got hurt, and then there was a quarantine, so now you get to come back for indoors. Like there are kids that are just finishing their quarantine stuff for
Right.
just this last indoor season.
Wow.
um and the transfer portal and the roster limits and all this stuff, I don't know what's going to happen, so I just have to be excited about the group of kids that I have that are coming in, and just to make them better. And that's the thing. Get them, thinking in the right way for not just track and field, but for life, and just trying to get some better people, better kids, make them better kids, not get some. I have
Right.
good kids, um, and kind of de-emphasize, be successful at any cost. Because
Right.
nowadays there's so many options out there, man. Like, kids are using Chat GPT. We talked about that earlier, and writing papers for themselves. And, it's been made easy for them, and just to get them to embrace trying to do some things that are a little more challenging for them.
Right.
But that's what I see out there for me. I don't know, what else is going on. I got, like I said, a good group of kids coming in, or a few kids coming in that I'm excited about.
Good.
Um, and I love my kids that are coming back.
Yeah, I love
We're
it,
not
man.
great, but we're good.
Yeah. You got high standards, so your good is pretty stinking high, but I know your great is it's a different pedestal.
Yeah, we hopefully they'll get there. They're all young, and they're hungry, so we'll see what happens, man. I'm looking forward to that part of everything. So,
I love it, man. Well, as we wrap up, did we miss anything? I think we did pretty good. What do you think?
nah, I think we pretty much did it.
I love it, man. I love your journey, man. I love this basketball kid for you're still a big basketball fan?
Yeah, not as much as I used to be. I'm still a huge, I used to be a really big college basketball fan, but I'm not so much anymore because the kids only stay, you can't get close to a team because
Sure,
the
sure.
team is only there for so long, and then they're
Yeah.
gone, and you get to liking a kid, and next thing you know, they're playing for the Indiana Pacers, and just they're out. Um, but professional basketball, I still like. The hard thing, and I'm gonna say this right quick if we got an extra minute. The
Yep.
hard thing is me and Kaba Tober is one of my really
Love
good
him.
friends.
Love him.
And we talk music all the time. We're friends off of the track and
Good.
about music things. And then one of the things is like back in the day when you used to have Prince or James Brown or Michael Jackson or people who are really good and famous, and they used to make records. They would be making music even if they weren't getting paid. Their
Mm,
goal was to be a good musician. Um, Athletes, Michael Jordan and Magic and those guys, they didn't play to be famous. They played because they loved the sport and they wanted to be really good. Jim Brown or anybody you can go back in the day, they weren't getting paid a ton of money. They were getting paid a relative amount better than people, but they played because they wanted to play. The people nowadays are doing stuff because they want to be famous,
mm,
because they want to be, do these things, and they're it's tough. That's the part that I'm not coaching. Like you won't see me on, doing a bunch of, not a podcast. I'll do a
Mhm.
podcast because I like talking to people, but I'm not like, here's the way you execute a perfect block start,
Right.
and things like that. And I'd like to see the sport go back to where people are running because of the love of running and not running because they want to be famous and they want a contract and get money. Like, and you hear that a lot when you recruit that,
Mm,
I want to go. One of my red flags is when I recruit somebody and they tell me, yeah, I want to go pro and be in the Olympics. And I'm like, how about we just win an NCAA title and see what happens from there, or try to win an NCAA title. And it's not a bad thing to have, but it's different. And
yeah.
that's part of me being a older guy is, I've seen different. So I know different looks different. But
Right.
I may be out, out of touch now. Old people get out of touch real fast and don't realize that they're out of touch.
Yeah. Well, I think, it's funny you talked about, a James Brown or a Michael Jordan, they would have played whether they were making millions or not, whether they were famous or not. I kind of get that sense from you. I don't know now after hearing this entire journey, Curtis, if I read the old news thing come across tomorrow and it said Curtis Taylor leaves Oregon and goes back to Laney, I don't know that I'd be surprised. You're kind of that guy that I'm sure I'm not sure. I know you're very grateful, very humble to be at Oregon, but you're a coach's coach. You want to coach. If I'm going to coach middle schoolers, you're going to coach them really awesome. If you're going to coach great NCAA All-Americans, you're going to coach them. I think that of you.
I appreciate that. That's what I try to do is I,
Yeah.
I I try to go where the need is. And so one of the things I know that, is that kids need support and kids like
Yes.
structure.
Yes.
You don't give them, they say they don't and they try to rebel against it, but if you don't have any structure, they don't know where to go
Yep.
and they don't know what to do.
Yep.
So I think that part of things is never going to change.
I agree.
Um, and I think that we have to, as a coaching community, we have to build up structure and build up the kids to where they understand where they're supposed to go. And like I said, everybody's not going to make it to the Olympics. Everyone's not going to be a top three in the United States, which is the hardest place to do it.
Right.
Everybody's not going to get a contract. And sometimes even you get a contract, maybe it's just apparel only or 20,000 bucks a year or some
Mhm.
enough to pay your bills. It's not going to be enough to live on. So you're very fortunate if you're one of those people. But the thing, and I was talking to a recruit the other night, I said, the thing they can never take away from you is your education.
Mm.
So, you know,
I love it, man. I tell you what, it's just it's interesting. It's just interesting to see your journey and where you are today. And I think hopefully we busted maybe one of the myths too of, all the Oregon coaches are just the most golded, everything's gold, you get everything and not you're not appreciative, etc. I get just a huge sense of humbleness from you, man. And I'm just really grateful for your time today. I mean, the most valuable thing you can give me, and Oregon's given us a lot. Again, very humbled for University of Oregon, the choices is your time, my man. And I know you're busy, and I'm truly grateful for your time with us today.
no problem, man. I was glad we could finally do this. I know we've talked about it for a while, and then I was like, I got to get this done.
you,
So
you know me, I'm a recruiter. I was a natural recruiter, so I'm gonna keep recruiting, and I'm just glad this is a
I
good get
need
for
I
me.
need you, man. You want to give that up and come up here and recruit?
Yeah, my wife, who's from Big Ten country here, would not move to Big Ten country West. So we'll just have to do it in spirit, my friend. Curtis,
Hey,
thank you so much, man. I am super grateful for you. Again, just humbled by you, and I'm so proud to be able to share your journey with our listeners because I think it's going to help a lot of people. So thank you so much for being here today with us.
no problem. Thanks for having me.
And thank you guys for being here once again. I hope you guys had a lot of fun. I think this is one of these episodes that you listen to again and again. There's a lot of great topics about not only recruiting, which of course is recruiting to me is like that the writing down the 5x300 workout. That's important and things like that. And he gave you some great insights. But talking about leadership, talking about mentorship. When we had a great, I'm always very very proud to be able to talk about a man like Tony Wells, things like that. I think those are the kind of things you need to go back and rewind, listen to what he said because I think it'll help you today and tomorrow for the rest of your career. So join us next week. We'll do it all over again and have some fun. See you guys.